and €1.16. LBC weather, rain and hill snow for England and Wales, clearing into northern England and southern Scotland. Clearer skies otherwise, but a warning of icy patches, a low of -3. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
Every Monday to Thursday at 6, this is LBC's Election Call, where I shut up and you speak to the politicians. Tonight, Mark Francois from the Conservatives. I said a moment ago he's held various ministerial positions, including Minister of State for Communities and Local Government and Minister of State for Defence. He is a passionate Leaver and is Deputy Chairman of the European Research Group. You might want to ask him about Brexit, local government, defence, the Remain alliance, a second referendum, Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party. But frankly, it's up to you. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC. We're live on LBC, of course. You can watch the whole of Election Call on the LBC website, lbc.co.uk. You can see us too on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and by closing your eyes and using your imagination. Your election call to Mark Francois, 0345 6060 973. Before we get started, I've always wanted to ask you, is it Francois or Francois?
I've tended to anglicise it. I say Francois because it's easier for people.
All right, let's get to the first call. Simon is in Orpington, Kent. And by the way, I should say you've got a bit of a cold. Because you've been campaigning. just where we've been out, sort of, door knocking in the cold and the wet. So a bit of a husky voice tonight. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see if you last till 7. Simon, What's your question for Mark Francois?
Hello, gents. Mark, I wondered why you're backing a deal that signs us up to a level playing field on tax, competition of state aid and social and environmental protection, when I thought Brexit was about being able to make our own decisions on these areas.
Well, the European Research Group, as you know, many of us opposed Theresa May's deal. 28 of us specifically. We got nicknamed the Spartans by the media because basically it didn't ultimately take us out of the European Union. So when we had the New Deal being negotiated, 4 members of the ERG were assigned to negotiate from our end, as it were, with number 10, and they were IDS as a former party leader, Sibylle Cash as our uncontested legal eagle, Steve Baker, the chairman, and myself as the deputy. And at the start of that process, we set ourselves one acid test that we would measure the outcome of the negotiations by. And the acid test was whatever comes out of the tunnel, if you remember it was known as the negotiating tunnel, whatever comes out of the tunnel, does it actually mean we leave the European Union or not? We fought for a number of concessions in the bill to implement the deal, what's known as the Withdrawal Agreement Implementation Bill, or the WAIB for short, because this is a treaty, so you need an Act of Parliament to ratify it. And we got something called a sovereignty clause, which I can come back to if we need more time, and certain other guarantees that we wanted. But the fundamental bottom line is that the difference between Boris's deal and Theresa May's deal is that Boris's deal does take us out of the EU. It's not perfect. We've not arrived in, some Eurosceptic Valhalla, but it does take us out. And on that basis, every single member of the ERG, every single Spartan voted for it. And I put it to you, is it conceivable, as someone who obviously understands these things from the question that you've asked, do you really believe that Sibylle Cash or Peter Bone or Philip Hollowbone or Andrew Bridgen or IDS or Owen Patterson or John Redwood, do you really believe we would all have voted for something if we knew in our heart of hearts it kept us in the EU?
Simon.
It doesn't.
Well, I think there's permitted dissent, isn't there, Mark? And perhaps you've taken it as far as you can go. You're just repeating that we will leave the EU. But, of course, we can leave in name only, and maybe that enables you to claim a victory, but it won't deliver Brexit. And I think a lot of people have got a nasty surprise in store. You didn't actually answer the questions I asked you, which was, why would you sign us up to a level playing field on those three issues. So that was my question, Mark.
Well, let me take that directly. We don't, because you're talking about the political declaration.
I am, yes.
Not the withdrawal agreement. The political declaration,
which is in the withdrawal agreement, to say that you will give best endeavours to stick to the terms of the political declaration.
Yes, but the declaration has been changed from the one that Theresa May agreed. It's been altered.
And I'm talking specifically about Boris's deal.
Well, no, exactly, but the political declaration has been altered.
Yeah,
sorry. You've asked me the question. You've got to let me explain.
Well, you didn't explain the first time, so I'm hoping to just get the answer on the second time.
Well, I'm trying. The political declaration has been changed away from a Chequers-style high alignment, which was in the first one, to a comprehensive free trade agreement, which is in the second, which we have to agree and implement at the end of 2020. That super Canada-style FTA will allow us to negotiate a free trade deal, which is what many Eurosceptics have always wanted, so that we could trade into the foreseeable future with the EU with low, or in some cases even no, tariffs. So what you've put to me has been overtaken by events because the political declaration has been changed.
Simon, you have the last word.
OK, well, he still hasn't answered the question. I asked why there was a level playing field, why he's agreed to a level playing field on those three areas. Now, people from the left of politics and the right of politics should be worried about this, because if you're on the left, maybe you want higher taxes, maybe you want more state aid, or maybe you want less. It's not up to the Boris and the Tories to sign our ability to decide that and to sign it away now in this withdrawal agreement, just so they can get Brexit and save their party.
You're incorrect, because many international free trade agreements, including between countries that have nothing to do with the EU, use the phrase a level playing field.
Which was specifically put in at the European Commission's request. It was added with Theresa May's deal, and Boris has continued it over. It was put in at their request because they were worried about the UK making advantage, having a competitive advantage after Brexit.
Simon, thank you very much for the question. You had a fair go at Mark Francois. I want to move on now to Dave, who's in Liverpool. What's your question for Mark Francois, Dave?
Yeah, hello, good evening, gentlemen. My question for Mark is basically, why should I vote Conservative when the Conservatives' legacy, the 10-year legacy, is, for example, no police on the street, police stations and courts closed, record numbers of murders on the streets of London, record numbers of homeless people living on the street, NHS waiting lists at a record level. Why should I vote for the Conservatives?
Well, this
is what you've done.
Well, let's take this in stages. Remember what we inherited. We inherited a situation where Gordon Brown had virtually bankrupted the United Kingdom. We were running.
Well, there was a global crash.
Well, there was, but not every other country, Eddie, was running a deficit of 10% of their own GDP.
Mark, this was 10 years ago now.
Yes, but wait a second.
You've been in power for 10 years.
Yes, but wait a second.
Why have you let our country get in the state it's in?
Well, because we had to make many difficult decisions.
You didn't have to make these decisions, you chose to.
Well, we chose to make all decisions, but we had to bring public spending back under control, because otherwise the country would have been bankrupted.
And now you've changed your mind. You said you're going to spend. So that throws that out the window, that argument.
Excuse me.
Your party, when you look what you've done, you're supposed to be conservative. You're supposed to care about law and order. And look at the terrible state the streets are in. And this is your legacy. I can't think of anybody in their right mind who'd want to vote for you lot again.
Well, I've been doing a lot of canvassing in Essex. I can't mention my own seat under the rules, but I'm here to tell you there are very few people I've spoken to anywhere in Essex who are going to vote for Jeremy Corbyn, because people who live in Essex don't like the IRA much, pal.
What about the question of crime, homelessness, record waiting times?
I said I would attempt to take them in turn. We're boosting back the number of police officers. My brother, Brian Francois, is a retired police officer. Did we cut the police too far? If I'm absolutely honest, I think we probably did. But we're now trying to put that right. We're recruiting 20,000 additional police officers, the vast bulk of whom will be deployed to the front line.
Oh, not all of them.
No, because some will be in specialist squads, in forensics and other areas as well, which is why I make the caveat. But the vast bulk of them will be deployed to frontline duties. With regard to knife crime, when Boris was the Mayor of London, he undertook a number of initiatives to tackle knife crime and reduced it significantly. One of those was the use, wherever appropriate, of stop and search. Now, when Theresa May was Home Secretary, she cut back on stop and search, as we all know, and knife crime increased. I'm not sure what she did was right, but Boris, as Prime Minister, is changing that, and the police are being given more authority to search people for weapons, and that must be the right thing to do, because if young people are out carrying knives which can kill, that's a threat not only to other people but also obviously to themselves.
You're making Dave's point for him. You're agreeing that police numbers were cut too far. You say a Conservative Home Secretary was wrong to do what she did with stop and search, and we've all paid the price.
What I'm saying is I'm trying to answer the question as honestly as I can.
I'm not saying it's not for me to comment on your honesty, but I'm saying you're agreeing with him.
Well, what I'm saying is I do think we cut police numbers too far. I'm being honest. But I also say the Prime Minister has a proactive programme to boost those numbers back up by 20,000 and also to take a much more robust attitude to knife crime, including a more proactive use of stop and search. So I believe those measures are right and we should vote Conservative to implement them.
Dave, thank you for the call. 0345 6060973. Election call to Mark Francois. Now, the news at 6:16. Here's Holly Jones.
Labour and the Lib Dems have criticised latest NHS figures which show A&E performance in England has been at its worst ever level. A 26-year-old man's been arrested at Heathrow Airport on suspicion of Syria-related terror offences after arriving on a flight from Turkey. More than 100 flood warnings are now in place across the country, including in areas already hit with heavy rain. LBC weather: rain and hill snow for England and Wales, clearing into northern England and southern Scotland. Clearer skies otherwise, but a warning of icy patches. A low of -3.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are long delays on the M25 clockwise from junction 22 for St Albans to junction 25 for Enfield after an accident earlier. All the lanes are back open again, but it's still taking around an hour to get through. It's slow on the M4 out of town from junction 3 for Hayes to the M25 after an accident earlier on. There are also delays on the M4 westbound. That's because of an accident after junction 8 and 9 for Maidenhead. In Battersea, Latchmere Road is closed both ways because of an accident near Latchmere Leisure Centre, so there are queues. Regent Street, that's closed both ways between Piccadilly Circus and Oxford Circus because of the Christmas light switch on. And on the Underground, there are severe delays on the Circle and Hammersmith and City Line after a train broke down earlier.
Election 2019. Continuous coverage on LBC.
Plusnet know your life doesn't stop when the adverts come on. It's all blah blah bargains and best blah blah ever while you make the tea and do the crossword. But if you can spare just 9 seconds for the important bit, grab our Black Friday deal today and that's the price of your broadband and line rental fixed until 2021. Plus £75 cashback. Search Plusnet Fibre now. That's it. Back to 6 across. Plusnet. We'll do you proud. Offer ends 2nd of December. No activation fee. 18-month contract. New customers in low-cost areas only. Cashback claim by email and within 2 months. Terms apply. Visit plus.net.
LBC.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
What matters most to you? Saving money or helping the environment? With Evergreen Power, you can do both. Insulating your home with soft spray foam insulation will keep the heat in your home this winter like never before with its air barrier seal. Reducing airborne noise, condensation, damp and mould, your loft will be transformed into a dry, usable space while cutting your heating bills and carbon footprint, so helping the planet. For a free survey, search Evergreen Power.
We live in an age where you can stream any box set instantly. But staying on top of our pensions is anything but instant. PensionBee can transfer most old pensions together into one simple online plan. So you can manage your pension on your smartphone as simply as streaming that box set. Download the app or visit pensionbee.com today.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
This is the Survivalist Network. I told you it was coming. Britain is in the fourth throes of a zombie outbreak. If you do not have an impregnable vehicle, you can still access a Toyota Hilux Invincible. Pre-contagion, it was £199 per month with 0% APR representative. For the good of future generations, friends at your local Toyota Hilux Centre are maintaining that deal. Heed, hurry, haul. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £9,701 when financed through Access Toyota by 16th of December 2019. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair. Call 0345 6060 973.
Mark Francois from the Conservatives is here. 0345 6060 973. This text asks, I'd like to ask Mark Francois if he regrets believing Boris Johnson through that famous meeting when they looked meaningfully into each other's eyes and a promise was made. And we've got a clip to illustrate this, of course.
I looked him in the eye, I've known him 20 years, and said, Boris, if you become Prime Minister, do you give me your word we live on the 31st of October, come hell or high water? And he said, look, Mark, we've got to leave, otherwise the Tory party is finished. We're leaving. That swung it for me.
What do you see when you look into Boris Johnson's eyes?
I see a man who's deeply frustrated because he absolutely wanted to leave. And as I think the whole country now, to be fair, appreciates, the reason he couldn't was because a Remain-dominated Parliament with Labour and Lib Dem MPs wouldn't let us.
But he made the promise, didn't he? He didn't say, I'll do this if all these other people agree with me. If you make a promise, shouldn't you keep it?
Well, look.
Or not make the promise?
Well, hang on. Look at what he achieved.
Well, look at what he didn't achieve.
Well, let's look at what he did, Eddie.
No, let's look at not getting out on the 31st. You looked into the man's eyes, for heaven's sake. I don't know how often you do that.
Thanks for having me on. Let me have a crack at answering it. So, firstly, he managed to reopen the deal, and everyone and his wife said that was impossible. The EU said they'd never drop the backstop. They did. He got them to change the political declaration in favour of free trade deal.
But not the central thing, he said, do or die, die.
Well, no, wait a second, please. He then put that revised deal back to Parliament when we had a second reading of the bill effectively to ratify the deal. That got through by a majority of 30 votes, which, given the events of the last 3 years, is a big majority. So Parliament in principle approved the deal, but they then deliberately wouldn't allow the time for it to go through. In the end, let's boil this right down.
He didn't do what he promised.
Well, because there are a large number of Labour and Lib Dem MPs who have never accepted the result of the referendum, who've always believed we should stay in the EU, who've always thought they knew better than their own constituents, and were never going to do anything other than vote for us to remain. Those people now have to go back to their constituencies, many of which voted to leave, and account for their actions to their electors, their employers, and unfortunately for many of them, a lot of them are not coming back.
Didn't Dominic Grieve have a point on this programme last night when he said, I've never experienced a politician in modern British history who's so elastic with the truth?
Well, I've known Dominic for years. He was on my same corridor in the same building in the House of Commons. But I have to say, on this one, I believe Dominic has been fundamentally wrong from the start.
About whether Boris Johnson's honest or not?
No, about whether or not we should leave the European Union.
OK, well, we could talk about that all day, and we probably will with more calls. One more clip I want to play you.
I think if we don't leave on the 31st of October, this country will explode.
Now, I listened to that, and I stocked up on lentils, beans,
really,
all sorts of canned goods. I've got a fire extinguisher on standby.
You don't strike me as a lentils kind of guy.
You'd be surprised. Well, you should work in the same office as me. It can be difficult during the day.
Right.
What happened to Britain exploding?
Well, I think, fortunately, we had the pressure valve of a general election, so that people, I still think, are very frustrated that we didn't leave. You know, we haven't donned yellow jackets and set fire to Oxford Street. We've now got an opportunity to release that frustration peacefully and democratically in a general election. So if people voted to leave, or there are many Remainers now who just want this finished and want to leave, and their MP voted to stop it, they have a chance to pass judgment on that MP at the general election, and I believe they will.
Let's see what callers want to ask you. Alex is in Watford. Hi, Alex. What's your question for Mark Francois?
Good evening, Eddie. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening.
The Conservative Party have been in control of the border for the last 10 years. They could have made a lot more restrictions under European law for entry. If you disagree with that, what about Tesla taking the manufacturing and production to Berlin when there's a car plant in Oxford become available?
Well, sorry, so you're talking about different things there. One is about the integrity of the border, and the other thing is about investment in different countries. On the border, it's true we were never signed up to Schengen, but nevertheless, being a member of the European Union, any EU citizen had a right to come and live and work here. Now, after we leave the European Union, many of those people will still be able to do that, but they'll have to apply for the right to do that. And what we've said is not that we're going to stop anybody from coming in, but that we think Parliament should have a right to be able to place some kind of limits on that. I don't think that that is unreasonable.
Lawrence is next in Essex. Lawrence, what's your question? Hello.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Mr. Francois. Good evening, Eddie.
Hi.
I'm in a situation where I'm a carer for two elderly parents, an 85-year-old, 89-year-old. My wife is a learning support assistant for children with the most acute learning disabilities. We have a joint income under the current benefit system of less than £19,000 a year. What are the Conservative Party going to do for the so-called working poor?
Well, sir, you said the key thing, which is working poor. So I think we now have effectively record low unemployment in this country since 1975, and the best route out of poverty is work. And there are lots of people who are working and who are poor. Well, not everyone in every job is going to be on the same salary as everybody else, Eddie. That is a fact of life. But we've done things like increasing the tax-free personal allowance from something around a little over £6,000 several years ago to well over £10,000 now, heading towards £12,500, so that even people on relatively modest pay will be allowed to keep a greater proportion of their own income.
Well, Lawrence has very carefully outlined what his life is like. What are you going to do to help him and his family?
Well, as I said, one of the first things you can do is try and reduce the tax burden on Lawrence and his family, and that is what a Conservative government has done. Now, Lawrence, you mentioned a number of different issues there. I do 2 regular surgeries a month, like lots of other MPs. I'm not saying that's anything particularly special. And I deal with a number of people coming to see me with a mixture of different problems, such as your own. Am I right? Did I hear you say that as well as acting as a carer, that some people in your family had special or additional needs? Did I? Because you did reel off quite a few things.
Yeah. No. My wife is in full-time work.
Yeah.
As a learning support assistant, looking after children with the most acute learning disabilities.
Yeah.
But that only pays £14,000 a year before tax. I'm on carer's allowance, as you'll appreciate.
Yep.
And I'm in rented accommodation, of which only half of my rent is paid for through housing benefits.
Yep.
So we are in poverty. I have 2 young children, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. How do we live under the system which has been constructed by the Conservative government?
Well, sir, you talked about your wife working with children with additional needs. I've dealt with a number of constituents who have similar challenges. The government's announced a £14 billion package to increase investment in education, and £700 million of that is ring-fenced specifically to address issues surrounding children with additional needs.
Is it going to increase her pay from £14,000 a year?
Well, no, sir, but the point I was making...
is not the point he's asking about.
Well, I was making the point that the children that your wife deals with are going to get extra resources to help them.
I'm sure that's welcome, but that's not Lawrence's question, is it?
Well, sir, it's not my job to come onto your radio programme, Eddie,
and explain what the Conservatives will do for poor people.
No, wait 1 second, and to get into an auction about promising people gigantic pay rises all over the place.
Is that the only thing that will help, Lawrence?
No. Well, as you know, we've lifted the 1% pay cap that operated across much of the public sector. There is now greater flexibility in pay. For instance, police officers and members of the armed forces have been given pay increases. A number of other people in the public sector have been given more than 1%.
So what will you do? Lawrence has outlined his problem. He's saying, why should I vote Conservative? What will you do for me in my situation?
Well, with respect, I've already said that we've abandoned the 1% cap on
That's what you've done. He wants to know what you'll do.
And we will also continue to increase the personal allowance so that people will be able to keep more of their own money.
Lawrence, what do you think of the answer?
Well, it feels as though that the poorest are carrying the burden on their shoulders, which are crumpling under the weight of genuine poverty, people who have good intent, who are looking after the most vulnerable in our society, are being penalised and subsidising a failing social system, which is being propped up by the Conservative government.
Lawrence,
and I am, by the way,
sorry, go on.
one of the people in Essex who is considering, for these very reasons, voting for Jeremy Corbyn.
All right, Lawrence, thank you very much for that. 0345 6060 973. Whatever your question, whatever the topic, Mark Francois is here. He's from the Conservatives. He's a leaver. Whatever the subject you want to bring up, we'll try and get it to him in the course of the next half hour. You can also text 84850, tweet at LBC. Now, 6:30, here's the news from Holly Jones.
The Health Secretary says the government's putting record amounts of funding in the NHS as latest figures show A&E waiting times are at their worst ever. Last month, 1 in 6 patients in England were forced to wait more than 4 hours to be seen. Both Labour and the Liberal Democrats have criticised the Tories' record on the health service. 1 person has been killed and at least 3 others have been injured after a shooting at a high school in Southern California. Police in Santa Clarita say they've taken a suspect into custody. A man's been arrested at Heathrow Airport on suspicion of Syria-related terror offences. The 26-year-old arrived on a flight from Turkey earlier today. LBC weather, rain and hill snow for England and Wales, clearing into northern England and southern Scotland. Clearer skies otherwise, but a warning of icy patches, a low of -3.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, LBC.
Home Secretary Priti Patel says Jeremy Corbyn has no credible plan for how to deal with the consequences of his open borders policy. Security Minister and Conservative Brandon Lewis.
What we're saying is that we can return with a Conservative majority. We not only can then get Brexit done, but we can also get the legislation through Parliament that really does give us back proper control of our borders.
When David Cameron was Prime Minister, you'll recall he said that he would limit the numbers to the tens of thousands. Do you recall the success of that policy?
No, I don't recall the success of it. That's one of the challenges.
Do you know what the figure was the next year?
I can't remember exactly 2011. I wasn't Immigration Minister that year.
205,000. The idea that Conservatives control the borders is laughable, isn't it, Minister?
We need a proper working majority so we can get this legislation through Parliament to get a proper points-based system with controls that ensure the people who are coming here are the right people who are contributing to our economy and our communities as well.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
If a bank or financial advisor persuaded you to move your savings into an ISA, unit trust or investment bond and you lost money, you can make a claim for compensation. If unsuccessful, you can then refer it free to the Financial Ombudsman. Now, if the prospect of pursuing a claim feels a little daunting, or you just don't have the time, then you can ask Goodwin Barrett for help. To discover how much you may be owed, text GOOD to 60777. Text GOOD to 60777 now.
Goodwin Barrett. At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
What matters most to you? Saving money or helping the environment? With Evergreen Power, you can do both. Insulating your home with soft spray foam insulation will keep the heat in your home this winter like never before with its air barrier seal. Reducing airborne noise, condensation, damp and mould, your loft will be transformed into a dry, usable space while cutting your heating bills and carbon footprint, so helping the planet. For a free survey, search Evergreen Power.
'Tis the season to be the ho-ho host at Robert Dyer's. Right now, save up to a third on dinner prep, such as top brand buffet servers, blenders and slow cookers, plus essentials including tableware and crackers. Visit us now in one of our 93 stores or click and collect to over 250 locations at robertdyers.co.uk.
I'm sorry, you have progressive memory loss.
When you hear these words, the outlook is bleak, but we're working to change that. We're Recognition Health, the brain and mind experts, and we're running clinical studies in London and Guildford. If you volunteer, you'll receive free access to a new generation medication as well as comprehensive medical care. With your help, we can change the future of MCI, as in mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease.
You have progressive memory loss, but here's what we can do.
To find out more about Recognition Health and taking part, go to brainandmindexperts.com.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £730 every year in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair. Text 84850.
Mark Francois for the Conservatives is here. Brian is in Stockton-on-Tees. Brian, what's your question?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Brian.
A big fan. You know, I can't. Well, every time you come on the television, I know you're straight to the point. You talk straight. You're a big believer in Brexit, and you've done a great job for the Leave side of things. But I do have a bit of a thing against your party at the moment.
There had to be a but. Go on.
Yeah, there always is.
Yeah.
Now, Nigel Farage has given you a clear run in your own seats, hasn't he? 217 seats. And you're giving him nothing at all back. You want to own Brexit. It looks as though your party, not yourself, your party doesn't want them to even get one seat in Westminster. They deserve a piece of the cake, Mark. I know you will probably, I'm not quite, you probably like Nigel Farage because he's got the same stable as you. They deserve some of this piece of this cake, don't they? I think, Mark.
Well, Brian, look, I've known Nigel on and off for 20 years, and you're right. You know, I've had a lot of emails over the last few years about the stance I've taken on Brexit, some complimentary, others not so. Yeah. But a lot of them have used the same phrase which people use about Nigel, which is, Mark, you tell it like it is. And so does Farage. So in that sense, perhaps, we are kindred spirits.
Why can't he get some of the cake?
Well, look, here's what I've always wanted. What do I want? What is the wicked thing I crave?
Is your party frightened of them, Mark, on the quiet? Are they frightened of the Brexit party if they did get in Westminster?
No. I mean, and here's why.
Sure?
No, and here's why. Because the wicked thing that I have craved is I want to live in a free country that elects its own government and makes its own laws and lives under them in peace. Yeah. I believe Nigel Farage wants exactly the same thing. I do not see Nigel Farage as my enemy, and I think we now have an opportunity where the Tory... Well, hang on, I'm trying to answer. Whether Tory or Brexit Party to turn our fire on the Marxists and hopefully deliver Brexit and save our country from the most left-wing government in British history.
But you're never going to win seats. Conservatives are never going to win a lot of the seats in the north. They get beat by 10,000 in general elections and what have you. You know, and you've got to come to a bit of agreement somewhere, surely, to make sure you win some of these Labour seats that are vulnerable. Now, you know, you said if people just... If the Brexit Party get voted by some people who win 10 or 15 seats, they've deserved that people have voted for them. And I feel that you know, I mean, you can't be 100% happy with Boris Johnson's deal. You're saying you are, because you're a big Brexiteer. And it's still tying us a bit, isn't it? And,
Look, Brian, I didn't, to be fairness, I think when I answered the first question, I didn't say it was perfect.
No,
I didn't say
yeah.
we'd arrived in some Brexit Valhalla, but I did say fundamentally it took us out, and on that basis I was prepared to vote for it. But no, look, hang on, because, sorry, we've only got limited time.
Yeah.
Look, I have come to respect Nigel down the years. I don't always agree with him on everything, neither do many of his own party, to be fair.
One last question, Mark, please.
Yeah.
Does Nigel Farage deserve some seats in Westminster on what he's done for Brexit?
Well, look, that is a matter for the electorate.
What do you think?
Well, personally, I'll answer with regard to Nigel. Yeah. I don't think my party has always treated Nigel with the respect that he deserves.
But Brian's question was, would you like to see, does the Brexit Party deserve, for everything it's done for the Brexit cause, does it deserve seats at Westminster?
Well, if it were an acid choice between a Corbynite Marxist MP and a Brexit Party MP, I would rather have the Brexit Party MP.
All right, Brian, lots of questions from you. Thank you. Malik is next in Manchester. Malik, what's your question for?
The last question is actually quite relevant now. Mr. Francois considers Nigel Farage a friend of his. This is the person who, after the New Zealand mosque shooting, said that was wrong on both sides. So that brings me to my question.
Well, hang on, with respect, wait a moment. I did say I do not always agree with Nigel on everything, and I don't agree with him on that.
But it's okay.
No, to be fair, I chose my words carefully.
If Nigel Farage was here, you could ask him about that. Ask a question of Mark Francois.
There have been accusations of Islamophobia in the Conservative Party serious accusation by Baroness Vazi. And I've seen myself some disgusting comments by the Conservative members on Facebook, which cannot be broadcast on radio or anywhere. Now, my question is, would you, as a member of Parliament and a minister, would you be able, from this platform and in your campaign in the next few weeks, would you be able to condemn Islamophobia? Let's stick to just Islamophobia for now. Would you be able to do that, or would that be difficult for your credibility?
No, I condemn Islamophobia unreservedly in any political party, and wherever there have been any accusations of that in the Conservative Party, they have been rigorously investigated straight away. The difference between that and anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is that the world and his wife knows it is not the same in the way that Corbyn and his acolytes have failed palpably.
But where is
to
the
deal
Conservative
with
inquiry into Islamophobia? It's been generalised, hasn't it?
Oh, come on, Eddie. You're comparing a pea and a football. We have had a relatively small number of isolated cases of people who have been accused of Islamophobia, and where they've been investigated and there's been found to be any evidence to that effect.
Sajid Javid wanted an investigation by the party.
Well, I'll tell you the investigation that's ongoing. It's by the Human Rights Commission into anti-Semitism in the Labour Party.
Well, that's changing the subject.
Well, it is.
We'll stick to Islamophobia.
Well, I've already condemned it.
Sorry?
I've already unequivocally condemned it in any party.
In the next few weeks in your campaign, will you mention that? Would you be able to mention that in your local pub, let's say?
Well, look, I just mentioned it live on a national radio station.
What about yesterday's Guardian report? 25 sitting and former Conservative councillors have been exposed for posting Islamophobic and racist material on social media, according to a dossier the paper's seen.
Well, any instance like that has been reported has been rapidly investigated. Jeremy Corbyn...
Well, let's stick with your party.
No.
Why don't you have an inquiry into Islamophobia?
Look, I've already answered the question about 4 times, Eddie.
Well, you haven't, with respect, because the party is interested in broadening out the subject.
Each individual accusation has already been investigated. The problem is Labour turn a blind eye to anti-Semitism.
All right,
because
let's move on.
No, let's not move on.
No, we will move on to Sean in Brixton. Sean, hello.
Hello. Yeah.
What's your question for Mark Francois?
Yeah, my question for Mark Francois. Hello, Mr. Francois.
You want to know why Jeremy Corbyn lays wreaths on the graves of Muslim terrorists that killed
do you know,
Jews?
that's something we spent a whole hour discussing yesterday. And,
let's
you're not responsible for that. Sean wants to ask a question of you.
Let's discuss it now.
No, Sean, go on, fire away.
No, sir. Sorry. My question is, why hasn't your Conservative government published the report into Russian interference? It seems a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It seems a bit convenient given the fact that Parliament was dissolved. So I want to know why the government hasn't published the report.
All right, it's a bad line, Sean. We've got the thrust of your question.
My understanding is that because it's a parliamentary report, it wouldn't normally be published when Parliament is dissolved.
Dominic Grieve says there's no reason why it should have been published before now.
Well, my understanding is the normal way of things is that if Parliament were dissolved, then a report that was still pending wouldn't normally be published.
But the point he was making was that he sees no reason why it couldn't have been published before Parliament was dissolved.
But Dominic Grieve is standing against the Conservative Party in the general election. He doesn't want to do us any favours, does he?
It's an all-party group.
Yes, it is, but Dominic Grieve is standing as an independent against the Conservative.
You want to know before the election if there was any Russian interference in our politics?
Well, the Labour Party alleged yesterday that there was a major cyber attack. Some people alleged that came from Russia. The National Cyber Security Centre, who are our national experts on this...
Well, I'm not asking about what Labour have claimed. I'm asking you about this report from an all-party group.
Yes.
People who, as Dominic Grieve told me last night, he can't leak this. He can't talk about the contents of it, and he never would. But he says he sees no reason why this couldn't have been published already.
Well, Dominic, in the words of Mandy Rice-Davis, he would say that. He would say that, wouldn't he?
Really? What, because he's no longer a Conservative?
Well, I think because Dominic has it in for the Tory party and we all know it.
And that's the reason he's calling for this to be published, do you think?
Well, I don't think he wants to do us any favours, put it that way.
You think it's a politically motivated move by him?
Well, look, I used to get on very well with Dominic, but I'm afraid over the last year he's taken a particular path that I don't agree with.
And the fact his political views may have altered as a result of Brexit, you think that's colouring his view as to whether this report should be published?
Well, as you say, you've had him on in this studio and he can speak for himself.
Well, he has spoken for himself and I'm putting his view to you. You're telling me, at least I think it's what you're telling me, you've given the indication a few moments ago, that you think this is political. It's because he's no longer a Conservative. He would say that, wouldn't he?
Well, as I say, I think it's normal that if Parliament is dissolved pending...
No, I'm asking about his motives. You've impugned his motives.
Well, I've seen Dominic in action on the European issue for 3 years
This
now.
isn't about Europe. This is about security.
Well, I've given you my answer.
Do you want to stand by your answer? Because you can think about it and change it if you want.
Eddie, I've already said what I think is the normal custom and practice with parliamentary reports.
But in terms of his motive for trying to get it published, you think it's political?
Well, he is standing against a Conservative candidate. That is a fact, isn't it?
You don't think he could be speaking up as the other all-party group members are?
I don't think
for
he
our
wants
national
people,
security in the face of Russian interference.
I don't think he wants people in Beaconsfield to vote Conservative, does he?
All right. Thank you for that. More calls, 0345 6060 973 to Mark Francois. We'll get the news now, 6:47. Here's Holly Jones.
The Health Secretary insists the government's putting record amounts of funding in the NHS as latest figures show A&E waiting times in England are at their worst ever. One person has been killed and several others have been injured after a shooting at a high school in Southern California. More heavy rain has been falling in parts of South Yorkshire and areas already dealing with severe flooding, with more than 100 flood warnings in place across the country. LBC weather, rain and hill snow for England and Wales clearing into northern England and southern Scotland. Clearer skies otherwise, but a warning of icy patches, a low of -3.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's very slow on the M25 clockwise from junction 22 for St Albans round to junction 25 for Enfield after an accident earlier on. Anti-clockwise on the M25, there are still long delays from junction 3 for the M20 to the Dartford Tunnel after a breakdown earlier. It's slow on the M4 out of town from junction 3 for Hayes to junction 4B at the M25 after an accident earlier on. Regent Street stays closed both ways between Piccadilly Circus and Oxford Circus. That's because of the Christmas light switch on. In Battersea, Latchmere Road, that's closed in both directions because of an accident near Latchmere Leisure Centre. And on the Underground, there are severe delays on the Circle and Hammersmith and City lines because the train's broken down. The District Line also has severe delays between High Street, Kensington and Edgware Road.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 8 from the Green Party, Caroline Lucas joins me for an interview and phone-in. Plus, the Tories say they'll cut immigration. Not gone well so far, has it?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you the very best London has to offer? Yes? Then Greyhound Cars, one of South London's oldest and most progressive minicab companies, want to speak to you. Spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. With a very busy day circuit, we have high demand and are now offering great bonuses and mileage rates for the very best drivers. You could pay as low as 10% commission. Start today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
And now we go live to Tyrrell's Farm.
Down here in Herefordshire, the folks are busy bringing in a bumper crop of local spuds. And of course, when you have the finest potatoes, all this ensures their crisps taste ruddy-licious. In fact, the Tyrrell's team have done such a spiffing job, people across the land are calling their crisps terribly, terribly tasty.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
This winter, why not take the short flight from London to Dublin with Aer Lingus from just $32.99 each way as part of a return trip. From coastal walks to cosy pubs and friendly locals, you'll find so much to enjoy once you're there. Smart takes a Dublin city break. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at aerlingus.com. Terms and conditions apply.
He goes past one. He goes past two. He beat another! And he's back in! What a goal!
Unlimit the sport you love this Christmas on Vodafone. With Sky Sports Mobile TV included on our unlimited data plans with entertainment. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Available on Unlimited and Unlimited Max Plan. Maximum download speed applies to unlimited plan. Speed and coverage may vary. Full terms on unlimited and entertainment at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Millions of people are missing out by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB offers interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. Plus, you can stop your friends and family missing out by recommending the Plus account to them. And when they switch, you'll both earn £75. Search online or visit your local branch. Terms and conditions apply.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
Mark Francois is here till 7. Darren is in Clapham. What's your question? Hello, Darren.
Oh, hi, Mark, and Eddie. So I've got a question, but I'm going to put a scenario to you. I'm in an imperfect agreement, and I have some third-party representations. They approach me and they tempt me into a new agreement. After I enter that binding agreement, I realise they haven't told me the truth. Should I stay in that agreement? Is that agreement still valid? That's my question to Mark.
Can you be a bit more specific about the analogy you're trying to draw?
A bit more help, Darren. What's your central point here?
So basically, what I'm describing is Brexit. Let's say we're in Europe, it's not perfect, okay, and we're tempted. We have a vote, and we're tempted to leave because we're told, it's rosier on the other side. Once we have the election and people vote to leave, we find out that we've been lied to. Is that vote still valid? Because when it's become obvious that the representations made during the campaign are blatant lies, how can we expect to abide by that outcome when it's completely Well,
all right. We've
Well,
got a question, Darren. Go on.
I've got in front of me a copy of the key page from the booklet that went through every household in the United Kingdom's front door before the referendum. And on the back page, it cost £9.2 million of taxpayers' money, by the way. But it said on the back page, a once-in-a-generation decision, and then it said this in very plain English. This is your decision. The government will implement what you decide. The British people, in a referendum, decided to leave. 17.4 million, a majority of well over 1 million votes. And the difficulty we have is that large number of Labour and Liberal MPs and a few former Tories have conspired to overturn that decision of the people.
I think Darren's question is about he feels that he and others were lied to.
Well, they weren't lied to.
Darren, why do you think you were lied to?
Well, I have members of my own family that made a decision. They were passionate about the NHS, as an example. Right. And the representation, the lies told on the bus, is just one example where they said, hold on a
Darren,
minute.
We're putting an extra £33 billion a year into the National Health Service. That more than covers that figure.
No, but where is that coming from, Mark?
Well, the difference was they used the gross figure on the bus and not the net figure, and they were clear about it at the time. Now, there was a lot of argument in the media about that figure, but what it did do was it focused public attention on how much money we were paying to the European Union.
Yeah, but Mark, it's been proven, right?
No, it's not been proven, Darren.
Sorry,
That's Remainer propaganda.
Let's hear the question.
Who proved it?
Let's hear the question.
Who proved it?
No, please.
Hold
Let's
on,
hear the
you don't know
question.
what I'm going to say.
Well, tell me you proved it.
Well, let me finish.
Have a go.
What's been proven is that...
By who?
By leaving... You don't know what I'm going to say. By leaving the European Union, we end up with a deficit, because there's a reason why we signed up to being in that trading bloc. The people signed us up for being in that trading bloc because there's a benefit of being part of that club. Right? We're leaving the most successful and the most lucrative trading bloc to pursue something which is unproven. It's risky. Who on earth takes that kind of risk?
All right.
Well, Darren, the British people took that decision. You clearly voted to remain. That was your right. But the British people decided to leave. And our job as members of Parliament is not to second-guess them and think that we're cleverer than them. It's to carry out the instruction that they gave us.
All right.
That's our duty.
I want to get another call in. Thank you, Darren. John is next in Leighton Buzzard. Hi, John.
Hello there.
What's your question?
Good evening, Mr. Francois. I have a very simple question. You referred to the Labour Party as having bankrupted the country. And I must admit, I agree with you. When I look at the national debt as it was when the Labour Party left power, it was £800 billion.
Yes.
Not quite a trillion, but 800 billion. So could you explain to me, sir, and another point, bankruptcy suggests that you have debts you can't pay. Would you agree?
Yeah, I said had virtually bankrupted the country.
Virtually.
Well, that's
okay.
what I said, I believe.
Well, I'll give you a virtual figure now,
Right.
which I think is more than virtual, and I think it's realistic.
Go on.
And that is that whilst you've been talking, our national debt has been going up by £5,170 per second. And our national debt today, and I'm looking at it on the screen, nationaldebtclock.co.uk, It says 2.266 trillion pounds. What have you done with all that money?
Well, we had to bring public spending under control, but because of the massive expenditure that Labour had sanctioned, it has taken a long while to do that. I accept that, but how would we
control, Mark?
Well, how would we reduce the national debt if we voted for McDonald's £1.2 trillion spending splurge? Now, you answer me that one.
Leave the politics out of it.
Well, yours was a political question.
No, he's asking about debt.
It's not a political question. This is a business question.
Well, OK.
I know that when I'm looking on the screen here, it says that I owe £36,400, and as a taxpayer, I would owe £62,609. Now, do the British public generally, like you believe they all knew about the benefits of Brexit, do they know what that implication is, that this country owes £2.266 trillion and the interest it's paying on it is going up? I can't believe the speed at which the clock is going up.
All right, John, we've got the thrust of it. Mark Francois, you don't have long, but you have.
Well, very quickly, if you were then to accept McDonald's £1.2 trillion spending spree, that would get infinitely worse, wouldn't it?
All right, there we go. Thank you very much for that, Mark Francois. We appreciate it. You've survived. Your throat has survived to the end of the hour. Election Call returns on Monday. I'll be here tomorrow from 4. Tom Swarbrick with you tonight from 10, as ever. And next on LBC, it's Ian Dale. Hi.
Thank you very much, Eddie. The Conservatives say they will reduce immigration overall to the UK after Brexit if they win the general election. Really? Isn't that what they said in 2010, 2015, 2017? Did it happen? No, it didn't. Don't you have buyer's regret on immigration if you voted Tory in the belief that they'd cut it? Boris Johnson says he's pro-immigration. So why is he making promises on cutting it when he must know he isn't likely to achieve that? And if he did, it would be bad for the economy. Discuss. Not until 9, though. At 8, we have Caroline Lucas, the